BXB. It's in the game!
As is often the case with one of these reviews, I start by looking back before I look forwards. And crazily to me, Far Cry is a franchise that has now existed for 14 years. That's right, the original game, developed by Crytek, though they didn't stay the developers for long in the Far Cry franchise as Ubisoft quickly purchased it from them, came out in 2004. And this is the fifth proper numbered iteration, though there's been just as many spin-offs and associated products within this universe. Well, not within the universe as such, because many of them go off in strange side avenues, but in the franchise as a whole, including an unbelievably awful UA Bowl film, which I don't in any way recommend. In many ways, though, Far Cry 5 is a continuation of the tenets set out within the franchise many moons ago. So you have a large open world, a myriad of weapons, some slightly supernatural elements or weird scientific elements has been in the case in the past, and a sandbox to go forth and destroy in a myriad of interesting and fun ways. And the gameplay in Far Cry 5 is just as good as it has been in the previous recent installments. I'm thinking 3 and I'm thinking 4. This sort of large combat sandbox in which you can throw various vehicles, weapons and explosive devices together as the AI come barreling in, and including, as well as enemies that are human in nature, animals and other weird sort of situations that I don't want to spoil completely. The setting of Far Cry 5 for the first time here is in the US. We're in Montana, and the much touted sort of plot revolves around this cult, extreme religious right-wing prepper types who have taken over a county in Montana for their own nefarious reasons. When this game was first revealed, much was made of that setting, and in no surprise to me, though it would seem to in some people have been a bit of a shock, this game didn't, deal with the politics of this kind of right-wing militia and right-wing religious elements in the US in the mature way perhaps they hoped it would. Guys, just to break it to you, this is a Far Cry game. It's made by Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a European predominantly developer with studios all around the world, but with a very kind of cosmopolitan, inclusive mindset. And they also want to sell multi-millions of their games. Did you really expect this game to be a hard, realistic look at the socio-economic politics of Middle America? Because if you did, I think you were dreaming a tad there. This game is predominantly about explosions. And while it's nice that the villains have some pathos, and I thought they were actually quite well characterized. We got this leader, Joseph Seed, right at the top of the cult pyramid. Underneath them, his siblings, John and his sister, and the guy who's running the militia. And there's this kind of sort of, they're like the sub-level bosses, they're the lieutenants that you, as you take them out and as you work your way up the pyramid, you get to Joseph himself. And it's what you'd expect. There's some overwrought, somewhat OTT characterization. They're definitely villains, that's for sure, and you definitely feel justified in murdering them. Montana, of course, has had its population greatly increased to deal with the fact that there are so many enemies all the time. It's almost as if they've been bussing them in out of state. Though that might be part of the outreach program that Eden's Gate, which is the cult, maybe does to get its members. I really don't know, and I really don't care. It gives me enough of a reason to spend time in this world and to kill the bad guys within it. And the world is lovely. It is beautiful. It is perhaps the best looking game that's currently available to play on, say, your Xbox One X or your PS4 Pro. The X's performance and its graphical fidelity is absolutely mind-blowing, and that's where I predominantly played this game. I've also played many hours on my Xbox One S, and that still looks lovely. The X, though, however, with its 4K resolution, native 4K resolution, and HDR support, makes the world really come alive and pop, with the sun shining through the leaves and the god rays settling all around you, which makes sense considering you're dealing with this kind of quasi-Christian right-wing cult. It looks stunning at every turn. And to be honest, the world and the environment is one of the most realistic I've ever seen, you know, for a game that is trying to portray realism rather than, say, a hyper-caricaturized sort of situation, which some games do. This deals with it beautifully and it looks stunning. Sound design is perhaps a little bit lacking. Sometimes the explosions and the guns lack a little oomph. However, they always feel good to handle. Everything feels nice and it's very playable. I actually found this perhaps the most playable Far Cry. Some of the changes that we've seen here are kind of to do with how missions are surfaced to you throughout the game. It's much less of a climb a tower, of which you don't do at all anymore, and populate the map with lots of icons, which was actually quite off-putting to me in Far Cry 4 and Primal. It's one of the things I criticised them for when I did my reviews of those games, that it's just that vomiting of the icons onto the map, and Ubisoft have been listening. Now missions are much more contextualised within the environment. You'll get them from just talking to people or finding documents or just sort of in a more natural, progressive state as you move through the environment rather than just the icons being on the screen all the time. So it encourages exploration. It encourages you to look through the environment. There's this cool thing now that you get where you can get the perk points, which is part of the new leveling system, which I'll talk about shortly. But you get them from these prepper stashes. And prepper stashes are often found in the environments. They're these sort of bunkers that people have set out. And inside them you'll have sort of a mini little puzzle to try and work out how to get inside them. None of them are that difficult, but they give you a little bit of pause and make you have a little bit of think to get your reward, which are the perk points predominantly and lots of cash. Now those perk points are part of the new simplified leveling system. Crafting is gone now. Everything is around the perk points, which you can get from completing these various forms of challenges, which you just get from playing the game different ways. You know, it encourages different types of play style and encourages exploration to find those prepper stashes to get those perk points. I actually like the simplification of this. I wasn't a big fan of the crafting systems in previous Far Cry games, in which you'd have to slay many animals to make a wallet. It felt kind of pointless. Now, of course, there's still lots and lots of animals out there to murder, but their pelts you just sell for money. And they're one of the easiest ways of making money in the game. Kill a few animals, make $1,000, buy a new gun, buy some new bullets, buy an outfit that nobody but you will see. That is, of course, unless you're playing in co-op. And now I have played some Far Cry 5 in co-op. It works perfectly well, though sadly progress is not carried over for the person joining your game. Only your game has that progress. It's a bit of a shame that that hasn't been implemented. It has been implemented in previous and other Ubisoft titles, but we haven't got it here in Far Cry, which is a bit of a bummer. However, let's be honest, if you're going to have a sandbox of destruction like you do in Far Cry, it's only ever going to be a bit more fun with a friend, and it works really well. Yep, it's great to jump into a vehicle and have a gunner who actually knows what he's doing, because a lot of the combat is geared around companions in Far Cry 5. That's sort of a new thing that they're putting a big weight on. So you have these sort of named companions. There's 9 of those, including Boomer the dog, which I love. He's such a cute boy. When he gets downed, when he gets killed, as it were, to revive him, you rub his tummy. He's adorable. But you've got saber-toothed tigers. You've got a dude who flies a fucking plane and drops bombs. You've got a myriad of different types of guys. Snipers, support characters, dudes with big rocket launchers and flamethrowers. And then you've got 3 slots for just general AI buddies. Sadly, the one thing the AI has in common in this game for your partners in particular, though the enemies aren't too bright either, is that they are as thick as crap. You're trying to get them into your car when you're in the car, good luck with that. You're trying to get them to attack an enemy, it works about half the time. They just work as a nice distraction, however. It just makes the game a little bit dynamic, so you don't feel quite as alone when you're out there in the wilderness. Though that might actually be something you want to do. And there's a whole nother element to Far Cry 5 here. So you've got the main story in the main world with all the companions and the perking and the leveling up. And then you've got Far Cry Arcade, which is this huge multiplayer sort of focused suite of complete customization. So you've got a map editor, and then you've got this interface that gives you these crazy environments for you can do a lot of multiplayer here, adversarial. That's where this is predominantly will be found. But there's also lots of single player experiences and outpost clearing missions and just narrative experiences, and there's loads in there. And the game is really new at the moment, and Ubisoft have been the ones mostly populating the arcade experience. But as time goes on, you know you're going to find lots of new and creative experiences that are going to be sort of brought to the player through the Far Cry Arcade. Easy for me to say. And I suspect that's where we're going to find this sort of interesting DLC that has been planned as well by Ubisoft. It's probably the most excited I've ever been for a season pass, with missions in Mars and zombie stuff and Vietnam. And there's a whole load of variety there over in the coming months. But, you know, let's just focus on the game at hand. As I wrap up my review here, let's look at the honesty of the situation. I think this is possibly the most engaging combat sandbox we've had yet in the Far Cry universe. And I love the Far Cry games all the way back to the original in 2004. The mixture of weapons and perks and environment and combat and the vehicles and the AI buddies and the AI enemies and the animals, and it all comes together to just create stories for you. Mad experience after mad experience, you know. I'm jumping out of a plane, I'm parachuting down, I'm using my wingsuit, I'm going into combat with some turkeys, that leads to some combat with some dudes, they're chasing me, I'm getting in a vehicle, I'm running off, I'm throwing grenades behind me, I'm planting explosives as I flee. The world is exploding around me in beautiful 4K. It looks amazing. It plays amazing. The story is what I expected. It's a fun enough wrapper. Maybe they could have gone further. Maybe they could have delved into the politics and the sort of sociological elements of cults in a bit more of a realistic manner rather than giving us this Hollywoodized version. But I'm not sure I would have wanted that in a Far Cry game. I might want that in a narrative-focused experience, but that isn't really what this is trying to be. This is an open world experience. This is a world designed for you to explore and to get excited about and to sort of always find something around every little corner as you explore. It's not really designed for these deep discussions of ethics and morality, preppers, right-wing politics, religion, any of that. But it works as a nice framing device. Then we have Far Cry Arcade, which is this huge, massive, customizational, just crazy world full of promise and creativity, and I can't wait to see where that kind of develops. All in all, I really enjoyed my time with Far Cry. Would I recommend you to go out there and, you know, buy it and play it? Damn right I would. Would I say it's going to give you a head-scratching moment of self-reflection and introspection? Probably not, no. But do you want that? No, you probably don't from a Far Cry game. There's plenty of great narrative experiences out there that will move you. I often talk about them. I often draw attention to them. Far Cry, however, is what I want from an explosive, bombastic Hollywood set piece of a movie. Or in this case, even a video game. So I'm going to give Far Cry 5 4 out of 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.